Good Tavach, Shavua Tov, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Torah Studies every week, week in, week out. Yeah, it's part of the weekend, but it's really part of the week in and the week out. Learning from the Parsha, living with the Parsha. And we do so this week, no doubt. So I have a question. Do you ever lose hope? So it's
Yes,
interesting. You do. So we're
I
learning
have.
the laws of mourning in Rambam, which we're going to finish this Friday. Rambam, which is amazing. Once again, fourth cycle we've been learning together. And we're learning the laws of mourning right now. When you lose hope of when somebody has been taken into captivity, and you lose hope that you will, by non-Jewish king or government back in the day. Today might be a little different, in democratic countries at least. But interesting what it has to do with the hostages. So if you lose hope that the person's alive and that they will come back alive, you start sitting Shiva. You start mourning for them, for their loss. And that's right. And it's a little more detailed than that, but as a principle, you have to mourn once you lose hope when it comes to a loved one and the loss of their life, that you give up. You give up. Again, I'm giving just as a very general broad stroke of the brush. It's Rambam, it's a lot more detailed than that. But we try not to lose hope, right? We feel that we shouldn't lose hope. No, also there should be hope. Sometimes we even pray for hope, right? So this is definitely something we're going on with the hostages, and what we, last week dealt with the Biba's children and the mother having hope can let in the end having hope that that they're alive. Then there was just having hope of return of the mother's body. But where does this come from? Why should we have hope? So I suggest it's the divine in us. And just as God is good, so we're always looking for the good, and hope is good. Looking for the good. It should turn out good. So I don't know how I don't know quite, I haven't figured it out anthropologic from anthropologic apologetic actually better day from anthropology, how we came from the monkeys, the apes, and I don't know if they had a sense of hope, and all of a sudden we have a sense of hope. Elamai, so must be, as we've said many times, we don't come from there. We come from God. And then we have a piece of God in us. So let's reflect on that idea in this week's Parsha. And so we got the command from God. Now we've got to do the work. And what's the work? God wants a home. He wants a home in this world. And initially, I wouldn't even say just initially, what God wants is a home in the physical world, right? So the verse says, and the beginning of the parsha, speak to the children of Israel and have them take for me, they should take for me an offering from every person whose heart inspires him to generosity. You shall take my offering. You shall collect the following offering from them: gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson wool, linen and goat hair, and ram skins dyed red, tachash skins, and acacia wood. So this last item, the acacia wood, is what we're very interested in. Why? Anybody? Why is that something that draws our attention? Any thoughts? Why would that be something maybe Rashi is going to deal with, which he is, which we're going to get to in a moment? But do you have any thoughts on what would be the issue?
The acacia wood doesn't grow in the desert, though.
Ah,
Where are they going to
very
get it?
good. Yes, where are you going to get it? Acacia wood doesn't, well, okay, it doesn't grow in the desert, but not only that, it doesn't grow in the desert, but why would they have had that to begin with? Gold and silver, they had. Why? How come they had gold and silver? Hmm. Why did they have gold and silver? Anybody?
They took it with them from Egypt, or we requested and they gave
Oh,
it to us.
but how do we know that they took it from with them from Egypt? Good, right? They took it with them. How do we know that?
We're told to go ask and ask that they give it to us. It was a polite way
Ah,
of get the money for the work we did, but
exactly, exactly, exactly. Thank you, Andrew. Right. We worked there, and God said that He already promised to Avram Avinu that we're going to go out with rechush gadol, with great wealth. So physical wealth and spiritual wealth. So the physical wealth was in the ninth plague, go and ask the, oh no, actually not that. By the ninth plague, you're going to see where the gold and silver is because it's dark, and you'll be able to find where their gold and silver. But you don't take it because Jew doesn't take something that doesn't belong to them. Right. And then in the 10th plague, when you're leaving, ask them for the gold and the silver. And they'll say, well, yeah, it's in this cupboard over here, there it is. And they gave it to them. Get out of here. We want you out, right? But the acacia wood is a bit different. Why? It's because, first of all, what's that got to do with wealth, right? Um, and why would anybody lug big logs of timber, of wood, into the desert? 50 beams the Mishkan is made from, 10 amos high, which is 15 feet high. So that's huge. Why would anybody do that? Right? So this is the question that troubles Rashi. So let's take a look over here. All right. That was the reading that I read to you. Doesn't want to move. Okay. Rashi brings on the words acacia wood, that's a sheep team. Said, where did they get these trees in the desert? Rav Tanchuma explained that our father Jacob foresaw prophetically that the Jews would build a tabernacle, a mishkan, a home for God in the desert. So he brought trees to Egypt and planted them. He instructed his children to take them along when they would leave Egypt. Anybody have any questions on this? So, pretty remarkable story, right? It's pretty remarkable. The Yaakov foresees in the future, right? So he brings them from Israel, plants them in Egypt, and they're there for 2 centuries, over 2 centuries, just a bit over 2 centuries. And then he, throughout that time, the generations are informed that they don't belong to Egypt, they belong to you. And when you get redeemed, you take them out with you when they're fully grown. Now, this is amazing medrash, but it's seemingly it's medrash. It's it's a really way out there kind of explanation. And so we need to understand, why does Rashi use this explanation? It seems to be, a homiletics and not simple meaning. Where would you get this from the simple meaning of the text? How would you deduce this exactly? Right. Furthermore, Rashi provides the source that it's the Tanchuma, which is a medrash. So he's right away saying it's a medrash, right? Which means like he's saying that it's not really the simple meaning, right? And so that itself is, if that's the case, why not give us a simple meaning, which we'll get into. We'll see other commentators, how they explain differently. Furthermore, usually Rashi brings the source at the end. But here, like he says, Rabbi Tanchuma says, explain, It's a funny way to say it. First, he gives the explanation, and the fact that it's from the Tanchuma, Rabbi Tanchuma is the author of the Tanchuma Medrash. So, it would be appropriate, as Drashi normally does, you put the reference at the end. Whether he puts it in brackets, whether he says and he usually doesn't say Rabbi Tanchuma explain. He just says, Tanchuma Medrash. Sufficient. Right. And again, getting back to the real simple question over here, Rashi's the literalist, taking it in a literal sense. Where do you get this literal explanation? Especially other commentators learn, the Ibn Ezra learns that there was an acacia grove in the desert, like an oasis. Sometimes you find in the desert. So there was this, grove there. That's how he understands it, according to the simple meaning of the text. And not that they took out of, that it was there 200 years and, so on and so forth. That's what the Ibn Ezra says. Which, by the way, we have that concept also in the Torah, because when the Jews came to Elim, it was, I think, to Parshas Bashalach a couple of weeks ago, right, when they were in the desert near the sea, the Sea of Reeds, there was an oasis there. There were date palms. There were springs of water in the desert. So we see that in the Torah that there is that idea of some kind of oasis. So that is one explanation Ibn Ezra says. Others say that it was merchants. They bought it from merchants, right? They bought it from merchants. But what is Rashi? He gives us an explanation that seems to be, again, it's a medrash. It's not the question. The issue over here is not, the validity of it. That's not the question. Not a validity in any of the explanations, right? The question is that Rashi takes things in a literal, simplistic manner. Why wouldn't he, just simply, they got it from merchants. They got it from, or, there was an oasis there, and that's where they, cut it down. And then, and they had it ready to go. Okay. Questions are clear? So Rebbe explains that it actually comes about the donations and how Rashi understands the words of the opening verses. Yeah, first verse, but David Rabbanei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, be chuli, and take from me truma, an offering. Right. Do you have any problems with that opening statement? Anybody? Sorry to ask you so many questions. I'm just, even though I'm actually not expecting that you should have the answer, and maybe I shouldn't ask the question. I don't do it to embarrass you. So please don't take it that way. I do it so you start looking for what can be an issue that Rashi would address. So I want to make you think what would be problematic. Gotcha. You want to say something?
The for me. What does it mean to take for me? It sounds like an interesting way of putting in the phrase to take an offering, but he says for me.
Excellent. Excellent. Right. And to
That's what causes me a problem.
extend that, isn't it about what they're giving? What do you mean take? What do you mean taking from me? It's about what you're giving. So the term doesn't make sense at all. It's about the donation that they're giving for the Mishkan. That's what this verse is coming to say. Then it delineates, right? Gold, silver, copper, and everything, right? All the way down to the acacia wood. And here it says, take. They're not taking, they're giving. Okay, forgot. But what the whole generous donation, right? Moreover, what does Rashi then say? Rashi says, brings out the word truma, offering, a separation that they will set apart from their property as an offering from me. So it sounds like this is, further kind of making a further problem. Truma means to separate, he's saying, right? To separation. So it's like they're separating apart from the property as an offering from me. It's as if they're not even giving it. It's like, take for me and separate. Where's your act of giving? Right? It doesn't sound like they're giving. Right? Is that clear? So the Rebbe explains that all the giver had to do was set it apart. That's the point. Of course they were giving. Of course they were giving, right? But why is the verse not saying about the act of giving? Because it was already there to be given. That's what the verse is saying. Oh. So gold and silver, we understand, as Andrew, you mentioned before, right? That they had to ask for, their due that was coming to them. Their due, first and foremost, because that's what God said, that they're going to go out with great wealth. So we understand great wealth means gold, silver, copper, and, material things, right? But of course, that would include acacia wood, right? No one's thinking of that as great wealth. And maybe it's got great value. Maybe it is expensive, but that's not what have wealth will carry, right? But the fact that it says separate, meaning in the act of separating is the act of giving. So it means it was there already for them to separate it. So again, the gold and silver, we get how they could just do that immediately because that was what they took out, the materials, we get that. But acacia wood, well, where was that just ready to be separated to give as a gift? Where was that? That's what's bothering Rashi. Where was that? Where did that come from? So Rashi, first of all, you can't say, oh, it's an oasis. Once God commanded them, miracle happened. Okay, hey, listen, that God does miracles is not a challenge. I mean, it might be a challenge for us to believe sometimes. We'll get there, right? But for God to do a miracle, it's not a difficulty. So God could have done a miracle, and there would have been an oasis, just like there were date palms when they were by the sea and before they crossed it. I think it was after they crossed the sea, right? After they crossed the sea, if I recall correctly. Anyways, at the time of the sea, that's for sure. The Sea of Reeds. So fine. So God could have done that, but the verse is telling us otherwise. That can't be the explanation. Why? Because it wasn't prepared, ready to be just separate. The command was given, separate, and in that separation, the gift is given. But because then, if there was an oasis there, that means they had to go cut down trees and get them properly prepared to be given. So then that's not just separate and give. In other words, it's there minamuchan from prepared already just to be given. Or rather, no, sorry. In the taking was the giving. In other words, it's there ready to be taken. That's why the verse says, separate, take, because it's prepared to be given. So it can't be the oasis. And it can't be you bought it from merchants either. Because when the command came, what? Oh, so the miracle was there were merchants there on the day, ready to sell to us. And so for there it was prepared just to be, that's even a bigger, kind of miracle, if you will. Then, so then Rashi says, so where did they get? So that bothers Rashi. Where did they get it from? That was his first question, right? Rashi doesn't always ask the question, but here he has to ask the question because it just doesn't fit in with the context and the simple meaning. By Tanchuma, it's a medrash. I know it doesn't fit into the words over here because you don't see it in the words, but that's how we have to explain it. Otherwise, where do we get an understanding for this? There isn't an understanding here. So he goes through the whole exercise to tell us, right, that Yaakov, he had a prophecy, and he saw that the Jewish people are going to be, uh, you know, sorry, 1 second. Right, that the Jews are going to build a tabernacle, a home for God in the desert. So he brought the trees to Egypt and planted. So from Israel, they brought the trees and planted them. He instructed children to take them along when they would leave Egypt. Right. So even though that is like phantasmal, if you will, right? Because where do you see this in the words here? That's what he says, right? Rabbi Tanhuma, he says. In other words, the Medrash is saying, but this is the explanation I have to give in order that we can understand what's going on over here. Yes, it is fantastic. It doesn't seem to fit in the simple meaning of the words. But we have because we have the question, right? Where did it come from? And since the verse is telling us that what they had was ready to be given, because it doesn't even speak about the giving. It's like separate, take, and in that is the giving. So it means it's there ready to be offered. So it can't be bought from merchants because that's a bigger miracle. Here it was ready to be offered because they had it with them. Oh, how did they get it? A fantastic story. Yaakov had such a prophetic vision. Where do you see this in the verse? You don't see it in the verse, but we have to come on to the Rabbi Tanchum with the Medrash and what he says in order that we can understand the simple meaning over here. Is that clear? Yeah? So we've answered our questions. But this then brings another question in Rashi. First of all, I want to make sure, is it clear what I'm saying? Anybody anybody not clear on what I just explained? Nice to, okay, you know what? Now that I see you all, who's giving me thumbs up? Comfort and, okay. All right, we're getting thumbs up. Okay, good. All right. But here we come now with another issue then. To be precise in the words of Rashi, what does Rashi say? Yaakov had a prophetic vision that the Jews will have to build a tabernacle in the desert, right? And therefore, he took from Israel, planted it in Egypt, told the future generations, when you go out of Egypt, take it with you. Ooh, like the details there. What's the necessity? What it came from Israel, seedlings or the trunk, whatever it was, when Yosef came with the wagons to get his father, right? That's when he brought the stuff. Right? When Yosef, he found out that he's alive and he's bringing the stuff. All his goods came along with that. Some acacia wood, right? So firstly, why did Yaakov have to take it from Israel? Why he couldn't? If it's necessary, to have it to build the Mishkan, fine. So just plant in Egypt and tell the Jews that this is. So you might want to say, oh, well, I mean, come on, you're taking from Israel and it's holy, it's, some people have holy cow, we have holy wood. Oh, that's where holy wood comes from. Ah, no. Right. So we have holy wood. Well, if that's the case, then why not? Then the gold and the silver wasn't holy. That came from Egypt. What's so special that you have to have the wood comes from Israel, planted in Egypt, right? To what end?
It was the wood of hope
The wood of the wood
because
of
they knew
hope.
they were because Jacob knew of the torture that they were going to have, but the wood represented, since he told them they were going to need it to take to Israel, that was the hope.
Ah, exactly. This is the deeper understanding that the Rebbe gives to Rashi over here. Exactly. See, the gold and the silver could never be a signpost for the Jewish people that they're going to be redeemed. Gold and silver, how would that in any way be your sign of hope? Can't be, right? Because the silver and gold is in someone's pocket, right? Or someone's home, right? Belongs to someone else. Okay, eventually you're going to get it, but that's not a sign of hope. That how am I going to get your gold and silver, right? Okay, so we have faith that God said, but it's complete faith. There's no sign of hope. But now that Yaakov, not only did he prophesy, but he wanted to give a sign of hope to the Jewish people that it's going to be 210 years later when you're going to finally be redeemed from the land of Egypt. And then in those 200 plus years, don't lose hope. You see those cedars those acacia wood that's growing, has been growing there for a long time. They belong to you. They're holy. It's holy wood. That this is no mitzvah now to binge on Netflix. I don't know if Netflix is in Hollywood, right? Um, but that don't ever give up hope. You will be redeemed. Not only will you be redeemed, but you're going to take this wood with you, because this wood then will be to make a home for God. And as even Hasidus explains in the Mimer, the Yitzhak Mimer that we learn every year, which we finished learning a couple of weeks ago, always speaks about in the beginning of the Mimer of making a home for God. And one of the key elements is the acacia wood, which in Hebrew is atze shitim. Shitim comes from the word shtus, a similar word, which means folly, right? We take from the folly of the world and we transform it and make it into a home for God. So Jacob was already doing that for the Jewish people. Don't take the folly of the fact that you are now imprisoned, you're incarcerated 86 years of harsh labor, 210 years in a land that's not yours, right? Don't take that, even though it's a long time and it's very painful. Don't take that as your reality. Don't take that as where you belong and and that you will be there in prison forever. You're going to be released from Egypt. Not only going to be released from the darkness of Egypt, but you're going to transform it and take from it, which has already been planted. That's the beautiful thing. It's already been planted there in advance. That's the word over here, right? It's been planted in advance, right? The what's the word I'm looking for? The salvation. The salvation has already been planted. right? Oh, yeah. It's already been planted. There's this, and therefore that's why Rashi also says Rabbi Tanchuma. He doesn't say the Medrash Tanchum. Tanchuma, you know what the word comes from? Nachum, which is the same like Menachem, which means to comfort. Rabbi of comfort is telling you that Yaakov had a prophecy. He saw that the Jews are going to come out of Egypt, right? And that they're going to need to build a home for God, a Mishkan. And therefore, Yaakov took from Israel, from the holiness of Israel, and planted it in Egypt, that the Jews should see those huge acacia, the trees, and that it should be a sign for them never to lose hope. That you're going to be redeemed. In the time of redemption, you're going to take this, you're going to transform the negativity, the folly, the darkness of Egypt, and you're going to transform it and to make it into a home of God, right? Crushing, or what the planks are made from, and as in the Mimer we learned, the word crushing means planks, also spells, take the letters and spell them the other way, is sheker, a lie. You're going to take the lie of the world, the lie of Egypt, and you're going to turn it into a home for God. And this is what Yaakov already planted in Egypt for the Jewish people. Wow, is that powerful or what? And so that now we have an understanding of the simple meaning of Rashi. So what the Rebbe adds over here is such a, not only does it, Rashi is explaining, right, how they had it ready to be given, right? Like in the giving, in the separating was already the taking, right? But the beautiful prophetic vision of what it means, a righteous, holy individual, a Rebbe. Yaakov um, is the embodiment, the true embodiment of the Jewish people, because he's the father of the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes become the 12 tribes of Israel. So he's the true embodiment, and therefore, in the embodiment of the head of the Jewish people, right, embodies the rest of the body of the Jewish people, and always thinking, and not just thinking, in the interim, in a current generation, but future generations of what the Jews will need in the future generation. And because we have such tzaddikim, therefore they plant for us hope, and they give us signposts that are hope. So the Rebbe gave for us a signpost, right, for hope. Imagine on Chav Bei Shvat, right, this past Thursday, the Rebbetzins Yortzeit, where it was a very painful day, right, with the reality of the Bibas family, or the two children and a mother who only, we only knew the following day, but look what happened on the same day. What happened on the same day? So we're there that felt, we felt the pain. And it wasn't that, can't say that we felt God's miracles, God's providence over us. But in fact, there was. Because 5 buses that 3 of them exploded. And if they would have exploded when the intended terrorists had planted those bombs, it would have been hundreds of casualties. And some say that there was even a plan of an outbreak. There would everybody, all the military and the army and all of the police would be so focused on this, on these horrific, God forbid, such circumstance, that it would leave open for other casualties. That's what they're suggesting. And in any case, what a miracle that happened. So when the darkness, if we have, when we see the darkness and the pain, we should never lose hope and know that God is always protecting us. We can choose to see and live with the pain of the Bibas family. Not to say that we shouldn't have pain from it, of course, but that's not where you should live. You should live with hope. See that the righteous plant hope. They plant hope, and they give us the signpost for it, as the Rebbe did so many times throughout over 40 years, and even for now, that he's also planted for the future and given us that hope. And what we have to do is choose. We have to choose to want to see the miracle, because it's easy to live with the pain and the suffering, right? And the reason why we do that, if I'm bringing on Shabbos, this is just to carry over what continues. Western culture is predicated on rights. And since I have rights, the moment you do something to minimize my rights, I'm going to look at you as an oppressor, and I'm the oppressed. You're the victimizer, and I'm the victim. And that's the world we live in. And therefore, by nature, by human nature, we either are the oppressor or the oppressed. And we live in that paradigm. And that's what almost everybody lives with, except for Judaism, except for Torah, right? So it's interesting. Because of that's human nature. So Christianity was the oppressor. They went in crusades throughout the Middle Ages, killing and killing and killing, right? Or converting. You had a choice, one or the other. Oppressors, right? And then you have Islam, same thing. That's their history. That's the history. That's what world history is. Either you're the oppressor or you're the oppressed. Either you're the victimizer or you're the victim. Either it's all about war and winning the war, and but what is Judaism all about? In Judaism, that you have no rights. You have no rights. All you have is obligations. If you're a child, you have an obligation to honor your parents, to honor your teachers, honor your elders. If you're a parent, you have a responsibility to your child to raise them appropriately, whatever it means. You have no rights. Even when the father sells his daughter into, right, to be a bondswoman, right? Not because he has a right. It actually comes from an obligation because he's so dirt poor and he can't take care of her. Instead of having her starve to death, right? So he puts her into a good family where she can marry into the family. It's stemming more from a responsibility. Yeah, right? Now, if the person was truly responsible, then they wouldn't be in such a situation, be so dirt poor. So that's part of the problem, is that they're not taking that responsibility fully, right? So Torah still doesn't take away the responsibility of what they should do. I'm bringing such an extreme circumstance, and look at the responsibility you have. Right? We just learned in Rambam, Ben Saramor, right? The rebellious son, right? So you don't have a right to bring your child who's in, as we learned in Rambam, as the Talmud tells us that, questions that the situation ever happened. But that's not the point what the Torah is coming to teach you. When your child is acting up in such a way, you have a responsibility. You have to bring him to the rabbis. Now, hopefully the rabbis will, bring enough fear upon the child, to, the fear of God upon them, or to change their ways, right? But you have responsibility. It's based on responsibility. Everything's responsibility. A duty. What is my divine service over here? you imagine if this is what the message for the entire world was? You have no rights, all you have is responsibilities. So when it comes to the natives of a certain country, whether it's America or Canada, or, and the land was taken away from you, stop being a victim. Or you were once, your ancestors were slaves. So what? Stop being a victim. I'll even stay further, and some people might not like this. I don't like the way the Holocaust is used by Jews. I think they're playing the victim card. I don't like the way it's used often. Yes, people need to learn about it, 100%. Not that we were victims. Learn the lessons that the Rebbe taught. The Rebbe didn't teach us victimhood. That's not the lesson. That we were the victims, 6 million of us. Oy vey. It is oy vey. Of course it is. But that's not just playing a victim. It has to be responsibility. Teach responsibility. Now, of course, using that to try to teach responsibility, but it's a convoluted message. It becomes a convoluted message. Anyway, people don't like when I say that, but that's too bad, because I strongly believe that, right? Because the message is, oh, how terrible, how terrible. It is terrible, but that's not the message. That's not the message. The Rebbe's message for the Holocaust, for example, was, look, a nation that was the greatest in science, the greatest in the arts, they were the leaders. They were leaders in so many areas of life. And look what they fell to. Why? It's because if you don't base your life on God and the responsibilities that God gives to you, rather your rights, right? What was their right? Their right was, we're going to make 1,000-year reign of the Third Reich, and therefore we have to make a perfect people. You don't have that right. You don't have that right, because God didn't give that right. You have a responsibility to God. That's the lesson, or a lesson at least. And that's the lesson over here. Here at an upshurnish of my grandson, my son Mendel, Shayna, their youngest, 3 years old today, had his first haircut. This Shabbos, we're going to have a celebration at Chabad for it, Chabad Zichron. So you're all welcome to join us. But so here with some family that are here, and I was here 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago and a bit. I think I spoke about it, about a shliach from New Jersey, our youngest daughter, Leah, her brother-in-law, 43 years old, just collapsed and died. Imagine the first person that found him was Hatzalah. The first person that found Hatzalah, a medic, a Hasidic medic, and found him, tried to save him, but father of 6 of his own children and adopted 2 other children. Such a special guy. So at the time, something came to me when I came to the Shiva. I was like, heartbreaking, heartbreaking, and still is. And in a way, it's harder now, because then during the Shiva, there were hundreds and hundreds of people coming to comfort the mourners. Now, everybody goes back to life, and there's a big hole. So I said to my daughter's mother-in-law, this young man who passed away, his mother-in-law, I even said it to the wife. um, she lost her husband. And whether I don't know if I said it, should have said it, didn't say it, should not, but uh, said, because my daughter is moving to New Jersey and they were going there to help them in the shlichus, to help them. So, they're going to live life together and helping them. So, you know what? Seems now that God sent the cure before the malady. Because here you're going there. You're going to be a healing. You're going to be part of the cure. So before you thought you were just going to come and help them in the work that they're doing. She runs a friendship circle, so a lot of classes and so on. And you're just going to help. You're going to do more than help now. You were sent there for healing. And God for the big, painful loss. So healing doesn't mean there isn't a pain. Pain will always be. But to know that you are there, planted in New Jersey, so you could be the signpost and bringing, healing to a painful situation. That's what the trees did for the Jews. That's what my daughter and son-in-law, I just spoke to them now by the Ohel about how important that is and what it means. You got to stand strong like a tree. Doesn't mean that we're human. Of course, there'll be moments that goes without saying. But what's most important is to know that you've got such an important place and a role to play to bring healing, to bring hope. Hope into a situation that seems, God forbid, it's not hopeless. Sometimes it could feel, I mean, I can't, thank God, I should never know from such a thing. Our oldest, a 17-year-old boy who is now a roommate with my grandson in yeshiva, all the way to, 6-year-old or something like that. And so we all have to be those pillars of hope. And when people see us, they're comforted. Just our presence brings them comfort. Of course, our words even more so. That's what Yaakov, his prophetic vision, what he saw. And that's who we are. We are these towering trees. Adam ki eitz hasada, person's likened to the tree of the field. That when we stand for who we are and what we are, firmly attached to our roots, we're very grounded in who we are as the Jewish people, or if you're not Jewish, created in the image of God, and that's who you are, and that we have strong faith in God and trust in God. And when we have that, we become that tree. We become that signpost for others that they see us. Just looking at you and seeing you, that gives me hope. L'chaim, everyone. L'chaim. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? Only in the corner there and everything. Wait. What a beautiful teachings. Batya Elisheva. So See, we all got a job to do. Be the divine person we're meant to be. And yeah, we believe it or not, we actually affected people just by being. Actually, a famous story with the Rebbe told by Fabringen in the early years. There's a not a video of it, but there's the audio of it. And the Rebbe says, two yeshiva students were going down in the summer. They would do what's called Merkez Shlichus. Shlichus, you know, a mission, emissaries of the Rebbe, Hashem, and bringing, goodwill, Yiddishkeit. The students would go with mezuzahs, they would go with some books, Jewish books, and people in the home, and a pair of tefillin and whatnot. And I think this was in the 50s. And they went into a town, and they couldn't find anybody. And they felt very dejected. They're like, what did they accomplish? So the Rebbe said, and how the Rebbe, where this came from is, I have no idea, and it's irrelevant, but so it was, that unknown to them, there was an older Jewish man who was looking out from his balcony, and he saw two Hasidic-looking Jews. He said, there's still such people like that in the world? He says to himself. He says to himself. And he started to remind himself when he came from the old country and what Shabbos was with parents and Baba and Zaydik, grandfather and grandmother, and the beautiful life that was from the past that he had long forsaken. And that memory brought him to, just here's a pillar of hope that is traveling through a town and just being who you are, dressed and looking Hasidic, right? That turned this person around and then, started that individual's journey back home. Yeah. That's the story. All right. Thank you, folks. Gute Nacht. God bless you.
Thank
Good
you very
luck.
much.
A great
Thank you,
week.
Rebbe.
Good
Thank you.
things.